Hello YouTube, welcome back to Kind Heart Homestead. My name is Ben and I'm here outside of our in-progress solar shed, which is relatively dried in. I'm actually ready to start putting up the metal, which you can see behind me. But I really need to start prioritizing things a bit better. I don't want to get too distracted with the siding because it's getting really cold here and it's pretty uncomfortable. So my priority should be insulating this place, but I can't start filling the walls with insulation until I get my rough-in inspections done. So today I'm scheduled to get the rough-in plumbing inspection done. I'm not ready on the electrical yet because I still have to put in the ground rods. So we'll see if I can get that kind of stuff done before they show up, and maybe they'll be willing to do an unplanned electrical inspection while they're here checking out my plumbing. So my water line is under pressure, 100 PSI. My PVC pipes, which make up the venting and sewer system, those have 10 feet of water in them, which I believe equates to a couple PSI, but it's really just a worst case flood scenario to see if the vents are watertight. And I have had drips there before, so I've had to cut some pieces out and replace them. All that should be good. Anyway, if you want to see what I'm doing this trip, please stick around. I'll be right back. Thanks. My objective before the electrical rough-in inspection is to install these two 8-foot long copper 5/8 inch ground rods. These need to be placed greater than 6 feet apart by code and clamped to a ground wire. I rotated back and forth between a T-post driver, a sledgehammer, and a handheld mallet with mixed results, but the ultimate success I had was when I got this 2x6 board and drilled a hole in it just to act as a third hand to keep the ground rod from vibrating out of the way of the hammer.
Dangerous times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world but keep the sky on your mind.
Well, I have my ground rods in place. Ideally, they should be a bit deeper, but because I haven't excavated this area yet, it's very difficult for me to hammer it down to the level of my slab. And I believe that once I get an excavator in here to clear a site for our new house, I'll be able to move some of this dirt out of the way to move the ground level down to the slab height. I do need to go ahead and get this installed for the rough-in inspection. So off camera, I had drilled a hole from the bottom of a vertical stud through the bottom plate at an angle so my ground wire would come out of the building as close to the slab as possible. That way I could try to avoid cutting my siding panels. I might have to slightly modify a piece of trim at the bottom, but I can always fill that with sealant if the hole is too big. But anyway, this is where the ground wire came out of the building. And you can see I'm sort of daisy chaining it from one ground rod to the next, using this type of clamp that allows me to fit the wire and the ground rod into the same screw to tension it. So this goes from one ground rod to the other, then up to my breaker panel, and I still have a few feet extra of ground wire ready for me to use in my solar configuration, trying to ground the different components such as the inverter and the charge controller. For now, this ground wire just goes from one ground rod to the other above the ground, but that's only because I have not excavated this area yet. In the future, I plan to dig a pretty shallow trench between the two rods just to conceal this wire, to make sure it doesn't get damaged, and just to make sure nobody trips on it. Got some exciting news, you guys. Just passed my plumbing and electrical inspections. Very surprising, given the fact that I only started pounding these ground rods today. As soon as I finished these, he showed up. So I thought I was gonna have to have them come back for that, which is fine because that's how it usually works. Usually with these inspections, you pay for your permit package up front, which includes all the different inspections. So the rough-in for plumbing would have been separate from the rough-in electrical. But since he was here, I asked him just generically if my electrical looked pretty good. And if it did, I asked if he could just inspect it while he was here, and it's good to go. Let me take you inside and show you some things. He was very thorough, but he's also very flexible. This box that I put in there is not rated for ceiling fans. Apparently it's supposed to have a sticker or a stamp in it. Mine does not, so I need to replace that. Not a big deal. The only point of contention was the height I have there. Mine is like 45 inches or something like that. It's kind of a convoluted code because it says it needs to be this height minimum, this height maximum, but it also says it needs to be above the flood line of your appliance. So my washing machine is a front loader, so it does have a lower flood level than I believe a top loader would have, but I'm planning to put it up on pedestals. Usually they inspect the plumbing without knowing what appliances are going to be put in. The homeowner puts whatever else in, and then the inspector never comes back to be able to see it. But in my situation, it conflicts with code slightly because it exceeds the maximum height. But I'm also trying to address the flood line of my appliance being up on a pedestal. So he called the inspector in charge, and it doesn't really seem to be an issue. But it is confusing in code. My electrical, I have a few little loops like this because I don't know exactly where the final box is going to go. There's another one behind me for the mini split. All he really wanted to see was the ground rods. He asked me if I had cut them. I said no. They're full 8 feet. They're 6 feet apart, just like code says they should be. And that's about it for the rough-in. Also, I forgot to tell you the most important thing. Let's see if I can get it in the frame here. I've been having issues with that T-fitting. I've replaced it twice. It's leaking again. And while that's not really going to see any flooding, it's possible that there could be freezing conditions that get water up in there and things like that. So I need to replace it again. But he did give me the go-ahead to go ahead and install insulation and drywall. He doesn't need me to have them come back out and check anything. He's just trusting me to fix what I need to fix, and that's fine because I'd say like 80% of the insulated space is this room that has no plumbing in it. So I need to start buying insulation in bulk, get some drywall, figure out how to transport all that stuff. So these are the roof panels behind me. They're 93 inches long. And I want to have a 1-inch overhang to make sure that no water comes back up. I'm putting the first screw 3 inches up. So that's 1 inch for the overhang, and then 2 more inches just, the structural integrity of the panel, just to make sure I hit my sheathing and there's no chance of it getting too close to the edge. And then similar with the top, I figure I should just match the bottom with the top. So 3 inches from the top. So 93 minus 6. That's the full distance minus those 2 3-inch increments is 7'3". If I divide that by 4 spaces, it gives me 1'9 3/4. And I just cut the story pole to that. So I made tick marks and then did that 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then just to make sure I'm not compounding an error, I measured 3 inches from the other side to measure the last dot. And that happens to be the exact spot where the story pole is, which proves that it's the exact right size. And the only reason I'm doing this is so there's even spacing. Usually roofing manufacturers don't want you to have screws or nails over 2 feet apart. That's the maximum. At least that's the type of metal roofing I'm familiar with. 1'9" is an even tighter spacing. So that's should be stronger theoretically. So I'm going to stamp a few holes in this and give it a try. The first panel is the only one that I used the story pole on to mark with a Sharpie. I used an awl to stamp through the top panel and to mark the position of the pilot holes on the next panel, and I repeated that process for every panel that I took off the stack. Since I'm not a professional and I'm not very experienced with the proper order of operations, I tend to get ahead of myself, and in this case, I got my roofing panels ready before I was actually ready to install them. I had forgotten that I need to install this drip edge piece of flashing where it transitions from the roof deck around the edge to the subfascia board. And this is just to deflect any water that might get driven by wind under the roof panel. The roof panel will overhang this by an inch, but that drip edge allows any water that gets under there to then be deflected again away from the building. And this also conceals the wood and protects it from weathering, so I don't have to paint that or worry about primer or anything like that. So these are secured every few feet with a standard shingle nail. I think they're about 1 inch long, maybe 3/4. Not very difficult to install if you have any skill with a hammer. But then I did use another piece of zip flashing tape to seal the upper edge against the roof deck. Again, so if any rain gets in there before I'm able to finish this project, it will go over the flashing instead of under it. After I got that all sealed up, it was just a matter of moving the roof panels onto the roof one at a time, trying to eyeball everything square, and then I tacked each of them up with 1 screw only just for the night because there's no wind in the forecast. There's not enough daylight left to finish it today, so the rest of it will be done tomorrow. So I hope you enjoy this time lapse of me carrying the panels up to the roof. Check it out.
I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I've changed for the better this time. I thought I would never be fine. I strive just to say I'm alright, and for the first time in a long time I'm alright. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. I'm not falling, I'll push all my chips and call all in. I'll bet on myself, you keep stalling. I hear what's right and take what comes and goes. And ain't no one in life holding me back no more. I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago. Back a year ago.
Since I had stamped all of the pilot holes for my screws, installing these roof panels was pretty straightforward. I used my position on a ladder to do the bottom 2 rows of screws, and then from the top ridge, I was able to stand on the other side of the roof that had not been finished yet and kind of slide my way down to do the 3 top rows of screws. You can see the hose is in place because it's kind of a pain to get up and down to put the hose in the pipe every time I want to flood test, and I've had to replace some fittings a few times, so I just keep it up there until I'm absolutely sure that I'm done testing for leaks. Here is a zoomed in view of all of my screws in a nice straight line. It looks so good. I just packed up. It's about noon on my last day here, and I got a lot done. I'm very happy about the inspection results. Slight disappointment that I have to keep patching and replacing these fittings that have leaks. I didn't realize that PVC plumbing would be so annoying. Anyway, I got half of the roof done. All the screws are in place. And next time I come up here, maybe I can start on the insulation and I can start getting drywall. So these are all large kind of truckload type situations. I might have to rent a U-Haul and get everything I can at Lowe's or Home Depot. So if you're interested in seeing that kind of thing or any sort of solar installations coming up in the future, please subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you next time on Kind Heart Homestead. Thanks. Bye.